Well, good afternoon, folks. It's been a long time waiting for Mrs. Reynolds to come back. She's long overdue, but she's here. And I got to tell you, things are definitely taking a turn with the death of the Queen. Don't forget to please hit the pause button. Follow us on Rumble. We just broke the 13,000 follower mark on Rumble. We're going a lot faster there than we're growing here on YouTube. Don't forget to share us on your social media, and also the merch. You got to get the merch because you want people to know what Gesara, Nesara, XRP, the quantum financial system. You want people to ask you questions, so you could send them over to the Bible. The Bible is QFS1776.com. It is the holy grail of what's coming. We're burning down the old system. We're never going back. And that's what it is. Victoria, welcome to the show, man. Explain to the audience who is Victoria Reynolds and what do you see your role in this new world that we're sort of graduating to being, if you don't mind.
Well, who I am. This is going to be really interesting for your audience that might be new to the whole spiritual awakening. So the Great Awakening has, it actually started in 1960 to 1963 in the Ascension. And we're now at this phase that's called the Great Awakening, which some of us started seeing about 10 years ago. Really started taking hold in about 2020, which involves becoming awake and aware of the corruption on the planet, and also spiritual awakening. And that includes opening up our box of beliefs and letting go of everything that we've believed before. So a lot of that is also going to be exposing the corruption in religion. So a lot of people who are aware of the corruption are still not spiritually awake. And a lot of people who are spiritually awake are still not aware of the corruption. So it's really interesting being in the middle and seeing both of these roles play out. And what's been happening is those in the center who are both aware of the corruption and spiritually awake, that group is beginning to grow and expand exponentially as part of this moving out of the old fear-based reality and into the love-based reality. I've been calling it that for years. This fear-based reality is the reality a lot of people are calling the 3D, the Matrix, hell on earth, pick a name, right? We have a bunch of different labels for this fear-based reality humanity's been living in for thousands and thousands of years. And we're now moving into a love-based reality, which is heart-based. And it's what's been referred to as heaven on earth, the new earth, 5D. Right now, those of us who are awake and aware are sitting in this 4D, 4-density reality, as we're processing the old world and beginning to create this new world. I am an angelic walk-in, and I'm the physical embodiment of Victoria, Elohim of freedom. And I chose to embody at this time on the planet in order to help humanity liberate themselves from their fear-based reality. Thank goodness I'm not the only one, because when I discovered who I am, it really scared me. I was like, wow, that is way too big for me. And then I came to realize that I'm not the only one, and there actually is an entire army of light that's here helping guide humanity forward. So as the Elohim of freedom, my role, there are two of us, my twin flame apparently isn't on the planet yet, is to guide humanity through this present process. So we're actually in the transition phase, this 4D phase between the old world and the new world, old reality, new reality, fear-based reality, love-based reality. If you think of the caterpillar or the butterfly, we're in this cocooning phase in between these two realities. And we're actually navigating all three of these densities at the same time. Very few people have the ability to hold themselves in that 5D frequency. So when I hear people say, I'm in 5D, they don't understand they actually are in 4D, not 5. 5 it is accessible. It, however, is not physically present on the planet yet. We, in our own consciousness, are bringing it forward into our collective reality. On a higher realm, it actually already exists. It's already been created. We simply need to physically manifest it. So and those of us in the spiritual community have been saying for years, we are the ones we've been waiting for. We are the leaders who will guide humanity into this new earth reality. And people are finally starting to grasp the leader we seek is inside every single one of us. The connection to God that we seek is inside every single one of us. And that if it is to be, it is up to we. So one of the reasons that humanity got into the mess that it's in is because we've been waiting around for somebody else to fix it. Waiting for a savior, waiting for a president, waiting for a prophet, waiting for a pope, waiting for someone else to fix it for us. And we're finally getting to understand that if we're going to change the world, it's up to every single one of us working together in unity and harmony for the highest and greatest good of all concerned. We have to let go of these ridiculous divisive labels that were created specifically to keep humanity divided. So when people ask me if I'm conservative or liberal, I'm like, no, I actually am neither one. I've never done labels. I don't like boxes. I am a free spirit, and I'm here to help set the rest of humanity free. Not just me. As I said, I'm not the only one. Obviously, there's an entire worldwide freedom movement happening right now. And it's so amazing to see, because when I first arrived here in this physical form, it was not it. And I finished embodying in 2018. And even in 2018, this freedom of humanity was still just like a little baby, just starting to emerge. It's like the fire had just been lit, and now it's starting to rage. We are now in this fire for the freedom of humanity, and it is taking over the entire planet. And all of us are the ones we've been waiting for. So it's not just me. It's not just any one particular person. It's all of us. And it's global. That's what's so extraordinary. Because never before in the history of this planet has anything been an entire human global experience. It's always been some countries and some groups. And this whole global experience really started to occur in 2020 with the virus. It actually brought us together as one collective of humanity, or that was the intention. That's why it was allowed. One of the messages that came through this morning for me was that the reason it was allowed to exist, even though it might have been created in the hands of those who work on behalf of the dark side of the contrast, as I call it, it was allowed to happen because light can work wonders under the cover of darkness, and because it was intended to unify and unite humanity under one banner of hope and love and freedom. And then, of course, it got politicized, as things always do. So we have to stop politicizing everything and turning it into us versus them, and understand we actually are all in this together. We have to unify. We have to let go of these ridiculous labels that divide us, that were created specifically for the division.
Absolutely.
So anyway, that's my
Yeah.
soapbox.
Yeah, Victoria, it seems that with this death of the Queen, or at least they announced that I believe the Queen has probably been dead for at least a year and a half, 2 years. But with the announcement that we're now entering a new phase of this silent war, what phase of the movie do you think we're entering right now, in your opinion?
So her exit from the planet, if you will, and she's been gone for a while, and I'm not going to go into how long I think that's been, at least 6 months. Because there's so much planning that has to go behind the scenes before they even make that announcement. And so they spend a lot of time deciding, as in the powers that, I call them the powers that were, figuring out what to do with all that. Now, I know, and I think everyone listening to this knows, it is a marker for an entirely new reality. The message that came in for me about that is that it is a marker for the end of the old world. And so it is like the final the final phase, the final marker before we start to see all of the old systems begin to collapse. No longer behind the scenes. We're actually going to start seeing it out in the forefront. So it's been going on behind the scenes for quite a while. I don't know if I mentioned this to you, but about a year ago, the visual I was given was a controlled implosion of our collective reality. So for all these people that don't think anything's been happening, behind the scenes, everything's been happening. So if you think about a controlled implosion, the outside of the building looks fine. And then one day it just falls, right? But from behind that external facade, it takes about a year to prepare a building for implosion, because they go in, they remove the windows, they clean up the electricity, they take all a lot of the framework out, and then they have to put the explosives in very specific locations within the internal framework in order for that implosion to occur without causing any collateral damage. So that's what's been happening behind the scenes. The Light Alliance, as I prefer to call it, has been working behind the scenes to set all of the explosives in place and cleaning up things that needed to be cleaned up so that when it starts to just implode, it implodes as cleanly as possible with causing as little damage, collateral damage to the human heart as possible. So now what we're going to start seeing now that this marker has been put into place, I think we're going to start actually seeing some of that implosion take place. I don't know, for lack of a better word, on live TV. I think and I was told a couple of years ago, there would come a time when the media would have no choice but to tell the truth. And I do believe that's what's going to start happening.
Interesting. And what other markers as we go forward? What other markers as we get into this world that we all believe is happening? And I do have plenty of proof on my end. We have now mortgage forgiveness. We have one gentleman that I believe has gotten his mortgage forgiven. We just did a show with him. As we enter this era of Gesara and Nesara, what are the markers do you think that are going to be significant that we should pay attention to?
Well, it's going to be interesting because the Nesara Gesara isn't going to roll out the way that people assume that it's going to. Because, and I think we mentioned this before, if all this money just floods out into the marketplace right now, it would end up right back in the same hands. It would end up right back up at the top, the people who have set them up at the top. So the flood of prosperity is not going to occur under the present umbrella, if you will, of the current president, the Federal Reserve, and whatever this is across the planet, right? I'm just talking about the American infrastructure. Nesara Gesara is not going to happen under the present infrastructure. The infrastructure has to start falling apart. And it is going to be a very, very, very it's going to be a close game from external appearances because the infrastructure has to collapse at the same time that the money comes in so that humanity doesn't go into complete chaos and hopelessness. Because the plan is to keep humanity not emotionally elevated, right? If all the people on the planet go all the way down into hopelessness, it's going to be a lot harder to bring people back up into that higher 4D unconditional loving consciousness that is a part of this new earth that we're creating. And so at the same time, those systems have to start collapsing. But as they start collapsing, to prevent mass chaos and fear and terror from taking over the planet, that money is going to start swooping in and allowing a framework for humanity to not completely fall into the abyss. Okay. So that the old framework of the old reality is built, what I've told people before, is built on quicksand. And they keep trying to put infrastructure on top of this building that is sinking so fast that no matter what they do to try to shore it up and to keep it standing, it's just falling, it's just collapsing. And so when people freak out and they say the systems are all collapsing, it's like, understand this is a good thing. The old systems need to collapse because they're all built on fear and they're all built on greed and they're all built on division and they're all built on the belief that some are more worthy than the rest, that some are above the rest, that you have a small number of people at the top that require all of this enslavement people at the bottom to make sure that the people at the top stay in their position. That all has to crumble. So I think it's really important for people to understand as they start to see the systems crumble to not go into fear about it and understand it's a necessary part of the process. And all the resources we need to build a new infrastructure, which is built on the rock of love, it's all coming. And it's going to look very close because we might actually see all the systems start collapsing and we may see martial law put into place. And understand that when that occurs, it's because the old systems are crumbling and the new systems are being put into place. Now, I don't know if this is still the case. I haven't tuned in about this for a while, but about 10 years ago, the message that came in is that Nesara, Gesara, GCR would all occur under martial law. So while the whole world is busy looking at all this chaos going on, we, those of us who are in the knowing, would go and get the funding for our humanitarian projects and have the currencies that we have be it's not refunded, regenerated. I don't know why I get told that word a lot. That under martial law, when the media is busy doing all this stuff over here, and the powers that were desperately doing everything they can to hold the infrastructure together, and maybe it's a result of the election results actually being proven that all the fraud that was taking place there amidst all that chaos may very well be when all of this funding takes place. And part of the reason for that, at least for those of us that are here to help lead the way, is so that it happens in a level of secrecy, so that it's like winning the lottery. You don't win the lottery and then go out and tell the whole world you've won the lottery. If you win the lottery, hopefully you do something humanitarian with it, although a lot of people obviously don't. But you want to kind of keep it a secret for a while to build that infrastructure. And then the infrastructure is in place so that as the rest of the systems implode, there's a soft place for humanity to land. And we will have created that infrastructure. It might still be young, but the infrastructure will already be there so that it's softer landing. And so I think the key is when we start to actually see the systems falling apart, that's a really good indicator that the money is going to be returned back to the people.
Right.
So one of the images I got a few days ago, which I find really interesting, was this whole thing with the IRS. How they just brought on something crazy like 90,000 new IRS agents in the United States. And on the side of the dark, that plan is to go out and really go after people who haven't properly paid their taxes. But what I was shown is that the side of light, because light always works wonders under the cover of darkness, is the side of light will take that same army of agents and turn them into people who do the refunds of all the money that's been taken from the people. So it's not like people are every person is just going to be handed money. They're going to be given back the money that was taken from them. The debt forgiveness for the mortgages, for example, a lot of people don't understand that the interest rates, technically interest is illegal, the interest rates that we've paid on our houses, that's going to be refunded. That's actually why you get your mortgage back. So in my case, I've probably paid for my house twice. And so knowing that I've paid for my house that many times, well, then of course I would get my house paid off. And I think that's the case with a lot of other people. You've already paid for your house. How much more interest you've end up paying? By the time you're finished paying interest, you would have paid for your house 3 times.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
why it's set up that way.
Yeah.
So for people who are trying to understand how it could be possible that you could have your mortgage paid off, it's not that your mortgage is paid off. It's that it's that they look at how much you've paid on. Your mortgage has already been paid off.
So it's interesting what you said about the IRS, that they're hiring this 90,000, and we've heard these numbers, but yet I watch people like Nancy Drew and Richard Citizen journalist. He just did a little video about 2 weeks ago. It was on Monday or Tuesday, regular work day in Maryland, huge IRS facility on a work day. Hectares and hectares of land that are parking lots, visitor parking lot, employee parking lot, and nobody's there. Nobody, right? So how can you put out this propaganda that you're hiring 90,000 agents? Meanwhile, the main building in Washington, D.C. is closed. The main building in Maryland is closed. My friend Paolo, he gets an audit from the IRS, and he's got a mainstream, straight-laced, accountant, and he looked at this thing. He said, Paolo, don't you dare pay this. He goes, this is as phony as a $3 bill. Okay. I'm sure he's seen a couple of audits in his life. He knows a real audit from a fake audit. So, in regards, you said something about the lottery. Most people that win the lottery don't know how to handle money, and they'll be broke in 3 years. They'll just squander it on bullshit that doesn't mean anything. Okay. Are you more optimistic today, Victoria, on the RV than you were when you first started, I believe like 10, 12 years ago?
I've always been optimistic about it.
Okay.
I've always known that at some point it would come. Um, it's just that part of the reason it's taken so long is because things are changing so fast.
Mhm.
So when I first found out about it in 2010, it was supposed to RV the week that I got it. That's why I bought it. And so for a long time, I just didn't pay attention to it. I was like, you know what? When it's time, it's time, and when it's time, I'll know.
Mhm.
And I've just have had it sitting there, just knowing that someday there would be some value to it, but not waiting for it. See, this is again going back to this whole waiting thing. People are waiting for the RV, waiting for GCR, waiting for all that, and it's waiting for Gesara. But the thing is that as long as we wait, we're actually energetically telling the universe that we're not ready yet. So I've just been going about my life knowing that when the time is right, it will occur in my life, but I am not putting my life on hold for it.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, there are a lot of people who are putting their lives on hold for it,
Yeah.
waiting for it, understanding that's actually creating a dam to their own flow by putting themselves in a waiting. It's basically putting themselves on hold.
Yeah, well, that's what I totally concur with you because I'm one of the guys that advocates, hey, get yourself into a situation where you're in positive cash flow and put yourself in a situation where you're comfortable, and then you don't worry about the RV. We know it's going to happen, but when it happens, you're more relaxed, you're more at ease, you're healthier, etc. So we preach that all the time. Do you feel the normies will reject this new world that we're about to get into, even though the evidence at some point in the next year, two, three, whatever, is going to be completely undeniable, be right there in front of your face?
I think it depends. Because I approach everything from a spiritual perspective, from what I call a higher view. There are many souls that have incarnated in human form who are young souls who aren't intended to wake up in this particular incarnation. So there will be some who will reject it. There are some who are, it's interesting, I was having a conversation this morning with someone about this. There are some people who are soulless and some people who are soul full. And
Yes.
those who are older souls or soulful are the ones that can see what's going on and have, since they were children, questioned everything and it didn't make sense to them. And then you have these younger souls who are like, oh, I'm just here. I'm like a toddler, right? I'm just here. I'm having a good time. And they're perfectly content with
Yeah.
the way things are. They're perfectly content following the leader, whoever the leader happens to be. They don't question anything and they're perfectly content with that. And so there will be some who will who still won't get it. Even when all the evidence is put in front of them, they'll still be like, oh no, right. That although and we have to understand that on a soul level, that is their soul choice. All of us that are here in incarnation didn't come here to ascend, although I believe the vast majority of us is. And some of us have set very clear intentions that no one gets left behind. The only people that get left behind are those who consciously choose it. So there may be, if you think about a third of humanity, there's a third of humanity that's going to be ready to jump on board and say, yeah, you got it, let's go. They're already ready for it. They've been prepped. They incarnated on a soul level specifically for that purpose to help guide the rest of humanity forward. Then you have a third of the people who are going to wake up and go, oh, wow, that's true. So nothing that's coming out into the open is new. Most people have been paying attention at all, just think it's a conspiracy theory. Oh, it's that conspiracy theory. It's that conspiracy theory. But one of the reasons it's taken so long is because from the Light Alliance perspective is they want as many people as possible to get those drips, that information drip to them, so that when the flood gets turned on, they've already heard about it. They just are like, oh, I didn't know that was real. I just thought that was some right conspiracy theory or whatever. So for all of those people who are already partially awake, that's going to be easier for them to now start drifting upward across that bridge and into the higher consciousness. Then there will be some who will transition out, who are just in this particular incarnation, we're not meant to be a part of this new earth, and they'll come back again through another incarnation perhaps, or they'll go someplace else and continue their learning experience in another there's a duplicate Earth. So we actually have two worlds that we're creating right now, and they look exactly the same on the surface. So there will be the majority of humanity will move into this new Earth experience. But for a while, like right now, we have all 3D, 4D, and 5D, these densities of consciousness all coexisting right now. And those of us who are awake and aware are navigating all of those consciousnesses all at the same time. And eventually that lower vibrational 3D reality will go someplace else, and it will no longer be allowed to exist in this particular reality. So I don't get emotionally involved with who stays and who goes, because on a soul level, that is their choice.
Definitely.
And that's what's hard for humanity to grasp, because our hearts get involved with we don't want anybody. We don't want to leave anybody behind. It's like getting on a ship and going to a new world. If you imagine, 100 years ago, if you were leaving Europe and coming to America, and you were getting on a ship and you're leaving some of your family behind. And people now who migrate from one country to another country, you're leaving some of your family behind, and it's painful.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. Now, do you feel that at this point, being that the cabal has grown to be desperate, because you have to be blind, deaf, and stupid not to understand that they're bleeding profusely. They're losing by 100,000 to nothing. And it's like you said, it's out in the open. It's about to be very, very obvious. Do you feel that there'll be more scare tactics? Do you think they have enough of a fight in them to scare the living daylights out of people who are, not awake, obviously?
So I had this great, actually I did an episode on my channel yesterday about all that before I even knew the Queen had passed. This great visual that came in. So my team's been showing me this card game for a while. The team, when I talk about my team, it's a team of guardians and angelics that I work with. And they use game analogies a lot, because this actually is a game that's playing out on the Earth realm. And they use like chess or a card game or a football game, some kind of game, because the human mind likes games. And so they use these visuals that make it easy for human beings to understand. So the visual that was coming in a lot starting last year was this card game that's being played out. It's like a poker game. And I don't play cards. So it's funny when I get these analogies. So I was seeing this poker game about a year ago, and how these the people at the top, if you will, are all sitting around this table, and they're playing a game of cards. And the team of light has an ace card up their sleeve. And so what I started seeing a couple of weeks ago is that they've been playing their cards. The team of light has a royal flush, the flush of hearts, right? So they now have all of the cards, ace, king, king, queen, jack, right? They have the entire royal flush. Those who are playing on behalf of the contrast, they're all sitting at the table, and we're playing this game of cards, and they're putting their cards down. Well, now they're only down because they've been putting their cards out. And the reason the side of light is allowing them to put their cards on the table and show their cards is so that none of this comes as a surprise to humanity. We'll be like, oh yeah, they did tell us they were going to make us digital IDs. They did tell us that. So they're putting these cards out to terrify people, again, with the whole IRS thing. All of this is just about terrorizing the people. And they're pulling out their cards. Now they're only down to a couple of cards. Each one of them only have a couple of cards left to play. What was interesting is this visual that came in the other day. They were, oh man, the Queen wasn't in there. And a couple of hours later, I found out she died. I was like, oh, that explains why she wasn't at the table. But the other visual that came in is that it's actually very funny, because what I started seeing is the painting of the dogs playing poker, and that they're all going to start fighting amongst each other.
Yeah.
So all the spoils have been put in the center of the table, and they're all looking at the pile of riches, right? Especially now the Queen's gone, her stack has been added to the center of the table, and they're all going to start fighting each other over the spoils.
Mhm.
And that I think is what we're going to start seeing.
Interesting.
But in the end, they know they are going to lose because the site of light is sitting there all peaceful, all calmful, just chill at the table because the site of light knows the hand they've got. And the other players know that the site of light's got something because they're so calm about it. And they're starting to panic. And they're going to become like rabid dogs that start going at each other. So if you picture the card game where they're, it's a gentleman's game. They got on their hats and their tuxedos and they're playing this gentleman's game of cards. But they're going to start getting desperate and they're going to start what my team was calling a dog fight.
Interesting. In your opinion, do you think this fight that's really taking place, and for people who have eyes to see and ears to hear, this fight's taking place right in front of our own very eyes right now. Do you think that the banks, as we transition, will morphosize into something else? Will most of the banks go away because of the new quantum financial system that's coming?
Yes, they will serve no purpose. I mean, and if you recall, a lot of banks have already closed. So during 2020, a lot of banks closed and just never bothered to open their branches back up again. And so I think we're going to see more and more of that because the only thing we're going to need, what keeps banks going is all the interest and fees that they charge. But if they're no longer allowed to charge fees and charge interest, there's really no reason to keep them going. Now we may have holding centers. What I was shown, I just finished writing a book with Metatron. I just got it back from the editor and I just need to now go through the edits. But what Metatron was showing me is what we're going to be seeing are more our vaults. And vaults are places where we will be able to keep our valuables
Mhm.
and cash if we decide to keep cash, anything like that. But there's no bank. There's
Mhm.
nobody telling us what we can and can't do with what we have. It's just a secure place to be able to keep things.
Interesting. Now,
Yeah.
you had mentioned earlier, you're hinting at the fact that you might not be from around here. And I'm wondering, if you are not from around here, do you remember any of your past lives and where are you from?
Well, I've had many human incarnations, so I can't really say where I'm from. I
Okay.
do remember a couple of my past lives. My most recent life was uh, during the Holocaust. I was a Jewish sympathizer. I rescued a lot of Jewish people before they killed me. I've been murdered a few times. So um, I incarnate on the planet when there is a freedom movement that requires me to incarnate here. I've incarnated on other planets. I have memories of some of those. They're very different looking. This one is by far the most beautiful. This planet is one of the most beautiful planets in the universe, which is why everybody wants to be here. It's absolutely spectacular. And we're going to be restoring her to her grandeur.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, so I do remember a couple of my past lives. I had the life before that. I remember being part of the movement to free the Africans during the Civil War. I was involved with the underground. Apparently, I was Moses' brother Aaron, helped guide the Jewish people out of Egypt. So when I incarnate, it's for things like that. And they haven't always been pleasant experiences, you know.
Oh,
I There was another one where I had my throat slit. I very much remember that one. That
wow.
was a spiritual freedom movement that I was a part of in the 1100s, I think, 1600s. Anyway, I can't remember exactly when that was, but I had this whole flood, this whole memory of being hunted down as a witch and having my throat slit.
Am I allowed to throw you a curveball?
Hmm.
Yes.
Yes.
Flat Earth. How do you feel about that?
So funny that you ask. So I was in the shower the other day where I get my best stuff. And I was communicating with Einstein. So Einstein is a very good friend of mine on a spiritual level. Um, and he is the lead galactic engineer, is what he has called himself. And he is that energy incarnated as Einstein and several other energies before that. And so I asked him, I said, well, explain this flat earth, round earth thing to me. And he said, it's neither one. That it's actually a torus. If you know what a torus is, the energy that goes like this.
Oh, okay.
So what's happened during the Earth experience is that Tark field has been reversed a couple of times, which explains the mud floods and all of that. And so when people think flat Earth and they're thinking flat, it's actually that it's been inverted. So some of those other cultures, the giants and things like that, they're actually got inverted into the center, and then and a lot of the beings didn't survive that inversion. And so this happens every once in a while. It's not that the poles get reversed, it's that the flow gets reversed. And so there are all of these other beings, and this is the reason that the North Pole and the South Pole are protected. You're not allowed to fly over the North Pole and the South Pole because they're both openings, they're both portals for the whole inner part.
Interesting. Now, Antarctica, what do you know about Antarctica? Is there really cities underneath there? Are there beings from other, planets, other star systems that really are far away from humanity? Are there cities that are way, way much more advanced than what we are? Is there an inner Earth, basically, is what I'm asking.
Yes, that's what I'm saying, is this is all part of that inner Earth. So it's not like they're underground, it's that they're in that vortex. And so a lot of the most advanced beings on our planet actually live in that vortex. They live within that portal. And then they used to be on the external. Now they're on the internal part of the vortex. And so my understanding is what I was being shown is that the last time this inversion happened is what we call the mud floods. A lot of the infrastructure survived, but not the beings. That's why we had all these massive cities that are gorgeous, gorgeous cities with no people in them. And for some reason, the windows are 10 feet underground, and it's the things that make absolutely no sense. So yeah, so some of the more advanced beings like that they're just not here on the surface. They're actually in that inner vortex. That's something I had never even considered until a couple of weeks ago. I was like, oh, that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. We survive as a species. This RV, the Gesara, Nesara, the revaluation of money, the gold, the silver, the money that's got to be returned to us because they've been screwing us since the beginning of time. It's all going to happen. But do you think that there might be something down the road that may delay it again another few months, another few years? Where are you on that?
I don't have a crystal ball.
I say the same thing. I say
Yeah.
the same thing. Now,
It has a lot to do with our collective resonance. So my understanding is what is actually pushing it through now is because so many people are aware of it. Where before it wasn't getting pushed through because it was so hush hush. Very, 10 years ago, very, very, very few people knew about this. And the people that were invested in it were the people at the top that had, seriously, and I'm not kidding when I say boatloads of cash, entire containers, ship containers full of Zim and dinar and dong and all those monies that are being revaluated. So part of the reason it didn't happen from the Alliance of Light side is they needed to get that out of the hands of those people. Because if they would have revalued it 5 years ago when all those people had money, it would have made them so much more powerful. They had to be removed and pulled out of the system before the money could even be considered to be revaluated. Now, also what's happened is the masses of humanity are starting to find out about it, and then they can't keep it a secret anymore. And because now there are so many of us who are seeing it and know about it and envisioning it and energizing it, that's what's actually going to cause it to occur, is our own energizing and visualizing of it and conversing about it.
Yeah. So you were saying is basically if more people would start to manifest and start thinking about it and start demanding it, it would happen that much faster, correct?
Yes.
I've been saying that.
Rather than complaining about how long it's taking.
Yeah.
Because the energy of complaining, again, works like a disease. It keeps us out of that vibration of creation. What creates is gratitude. So rather than complaining about why things are taking so long, be grateful for the opportunity, grateful for what's coming. We actually can practice gratitude in advance. I am so grateful for this money that's coming to me.
Yeah. Well,
If we hold ourselves in that vibration of gratitude, that is actually what causes the floodgates to open. As long as people are in complaining, you're actually keeping your own floodgates closed shut.
mhm.
So people need to stop complaining about how long things are taking, instead focus on gratitude of what's coming.
Mm. Would you be open to discussing potentially what some of your humanitarian project or projects will be when it does actually manifest?
Yeah, I've known for years that I'm intended to help create an entirely new entertainment industry. And
Okay.
so that's where I see it going. What I've been told is stories worth telling. So we're going to start telling better stories, true stories, inspiring stories, instead of this, as Marianne Williamson put it 10 years ago, the dog food that the film industry has been feeding humanity. So they're feeding us all this fear and all this darkness, all this to keep the vibration low. If we flip the script of the entertainment industry, we can change the world in an instant, because
Absolutely.
film industry can change the world faster than anything else, or rather entertainment, because human beings learn best through entertainment. The dark side of the contrast knows that. And so they use entertainment, one as a way of secretly telling us what they're up to, but also as a way of holding humanity stuck in the vision they want us to create. Our minds, the human mind, is so powerful, we can create with just thought. And when we combine our words with our thoughts, we can create anything. So they feed us these negative visions, these dystopian visions, to keep us envisioning that. So we can't actually envision utopia. So this new conscious entertainment industry, we're only going to be feeding people what's possible and only giving people the good that has happened. And it will shift the entire human consciousness. Within a couple of years, we could be creating an entirely new reality. And the other thing I want to do is, that's my primary focus, is the entertainment industry, which also includes books. What I was shown years ago is books, events, films. It was with the song, I don't know if you know this song, Girls on Film. Girls on Film, from the 1980s. I always go back to
Okay.
80s songs because that's my
Okay.
era. But what I was is books on film. So a lot of really, really good books, really inspiring stories are going to be turned into film projects. And so that is my primary focus. That is my way of helping to heal the hearts of humanity. And then I want to travel and teach. I've been given very clear guidance that I'm going to be speaking on stages all over the world and in live audiences, and helping individuals within the audience start to heal the broken hearts of humanity. Because the human heart hasn't been working properly. And if we're going to create this heart-based reality, we have to get our hearts working properly.
Yeah. I believe that part of our future, and I'm sure you'll concur, is going to be frequency healing. There's going to be a lot of frequency healing. There'll be a lot of free energy. As a matter of fact, because I decided to get myself into this movie and built a pretty massive network so far, but with about 100,000 people following us on all the different platforms, I get to see a lot of stuff that most people don't get to see. And I had a gentleman was driving along the highway. I forget where was it, whether it was Texas or Oklahoma, but you start to see Tesla towers popping up everywhere. I mean, literally for as far as your eyes could see. So free energy technology, in my opinion, is coming. I think the electric car is going to be very short-lived. You agree? Disagree?
Well, and not necessarily with the electric car. The electric car as it presently is, it took me a while to understand this, because I was a few years ago all about, yay, electric cars, down with the oil industry, because the oil industry right now is one of the top industries for enslaving humanity. And people get stuck in the whole gasoline thing when they think of the oil industry. They're not taking into consideration that where the oil industry makes most of its money is actually plastics. And that needs to come to a halt. The issue with the electric cars that are being made right now is that they're being built to connect the grid so that Big Brother, if you will, knows where you are at all times. So I think those electric cars will continue, but they'll be then liberated from the control system and perhaps then be operated by those Tesla towers rather than the grid, because the grid is going to be shut down and replaced with free energy. So I think we can continue to use those electric cars, but they're going to be powered by a different source until we replace them, because the technology that is currently being used to create those automobiles is also not earth friendly. And I do think it's going to be short-lived, because we're going to be creating new transportation technology that's completely different.
Absolutely.
You know,
Well, I think
flying
we will see
cars are coming.
flying
Yeah.
cars are coming. No question. I mean, look, we've been scraping the earth like turkeys on technology that runs on inflated tires with air. Are you kidding me? You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
ridiculous. We should
Well,
be,
and that entire thing is run by the petroleum industry,
of course.
right?
Of course.
So, and then they wouldn't allow electrical cars until they found a way to profit from it. So now they found a way to profit from it. They're allowing it to be, but that, like I said, that's just in that and you're agreeing too, this is an interim technology.
Absolutely.
And that when this free energy comes into play, we will also know, we'll understand at the same time what anti-gravity is. And I don't even like using the word anti, because it means against, but that levitation that comes with flying cars isn't anti-gravity, it's pro something else.
Magnetic propulsion.
It's interesting that you say that, because the guidance I was getting about 10 years ago is that it has to do with vibration. And magnets run on a vibration.
Yeah.
Right. But what I was being shown, and I'm really curious to see if I'm right someday, is that the frequency, not vibration, frequency is the word I'm looking for. The frequency of love actually causes levitation. That's why when people first fall in love, they're like, oh, I'm higher than a kite. It makes you high. And so what I was seeing is if you take these magnets and you supercharge them with that love frequency, it actually causes them to levitate.
Interesting.
And I'm sure science is playing around with that, but that's what I was shown. I was like, oh my gosh, that is the future. If we can tap into that frequency that causes people to get high, that can actually cause a physical levitation. And I think it's with the magnetics, but it's using the Earth's own magnetic field. That the gravity actually is a magnetic. It's magnetic. It's using the Earth's magnetic field but science supposedly hasn't figured out yet how that works. My feeling is science already has figured it out. They just haven't figured out how to monopolize it, because all of our systems are presently based on greed.
Exactly correct. Starlink, is Musk, in your opinion, a good guy, bad guy? Do you feel that we will be graduating out of this antiquated internet system, going on to Internet 2.0 or 3.0, whatever you want to call it?
Yes. It's not called the internet. What was my team actually had a name for it? There's another word for it.
Mm-hmm.
It is based on the quantum fields.
Okay.
What is the other word I'm looking for? Blockchain.
Quantum computers, blockchain.
Yeah, it's utilizing that, and it is utilizing the satellites as well. So my team was calling the EBS, not emergency broadcast system, they were calling it Earth Broadcasting Service, utilizing all of those satellites so they can broadcast across the entire planet all at once. That's also part of the quantum system. Elon Musk is kind of playing both sides right now.
Is he? Is he being controlled by both sides?
It's interesting. What I'm seeing is a tug of war. Like he's in the middle and he's being tugged by both sides.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and he seems to be okay with playing the middleman
Yeah.
right now. Remember, light, this is what people don't understand. The dark, it might not seem like it, but darkness is always working on behalf of the light. And so what I started hearing a couple of years ago is that light can work wonders under the cover of darkness. And the darkness always eventually works for, it will never admit that it works for the light, but we can't see the light without the darkness right now. So he may be working for the dark as with regard to money and greed and all that, right? So he's playing that, but he's also playing the light and that putting these Starlink systems and all that up. But he might only be looking at it from the position, from the financial position of it. But what's going to happen is everything the dark side is putting into place is being allowed by the Alliance of Light because we're going to be jumping onto those systems and using them. Allowing the dark to build the infrastructure, then we're just going to, okay, thanks for setting that up for us. We'll take it over now.
Exactly. Exactly. And that's what I think. I think, the XRP, the XLMs, the XDC, the new financial system that's going to be that is already on the quantum computers and the Starlink satellites, it could be used for bad if the bad guys would win, but the bad guys are losing. So at some point it will be used because some people say, oh, I heard that, XRP Ripple is involved with, such and such, entity, and it's a bad entity, or BlackRock. Yes, absolutely. They are all invested in case they think they're going to win, then they can manipulate, right? But they're not going to win. They're not winning. So, listen, I had a great time talking with you. How can people find you? Do me a favor, send Amber all the links that how people can find you. We're going to put them right underneath the videos. This way you could follow this wonderful person. In closing, where can people find you? What's the best website, etc.?
Well, the best way to find me is on my personal website at victoriareynolds.com. I one-on-one sessions with people. I teach some ascension classes. And I have, as I mentioned, I have some new books coming. I have what I'm calling the Transcendence Academy. I haven't set it up yet. That's going to be a weekly call with people who want more one-on-one guidance during this time, because right now we're still in the beginning of this transition phase, and it is going to get really, really interesting
Oh
for
yeah,
the next few years. And so people are going to be wanting again, a place where they can go to get a softer place. I do things quite softly. So it's more of a softer, more gentle approach to look at what's happening in the world right now.
absolutely. Well, Victoria, it's a pleasure having you. I'm sure that we'll do many more of these to come. Hopefully, you won't make us wait as long this time around.
Oh, well, I gotta tell you, this past summer, so I got the guidance from Spirit at the beginning of the summer to rent out my house. I haven't been home for 3 months.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and so that's why I wasn't able to do anything, because I'm like, I don't know. I have no idea where I'm going to be living next weekend. So no, I can't set up an appointment with you. But I'm now settled back in my house for another school year. So it's going to be much more easy to round up and connect with.
So have you been traveling around the world, or what have you been doing in the last few months?
I wish. No, I've been practicing being a traveling teacher. I haven't gotten
Oh,
around the world
interesting.
yet, but it's been California, Florida, Arizona, mostly California. But
Cool.
it's so I've been what I call a traveling teacher, and I'm getting paid to teach, but not in the way people generally think of as being paid to teach. So
Exactly.
I'll go and I will teach, and while I'm teaching someplace, somebody else is staying at my house and paying me. So it's a
Interesting.
really interesting arrangement. But I think what's important to explain to people is that people get all caught up in where they think money has to come from. And when we just allow spirit to provide it to us, it can come to us from it can be the most unexpected place. And so I set the intentions that I wanted to be a traveling teacher, expecting to be a paid speaker. And then I started to understand I'm getting paid to speak, just not from the place that I'm speaking in.
Interesting. Well, let's say goodbye to the audience. I'm going to hit the pause button, hold you over for an extra 5 minutes. Guys, if you listen this far, thank you. This was a very interesting podcast. She's amazing. She's an incredible spiritual leader. And yes, we will have her back. Thank you for listening this far. Bye-bye.